Welcome to the 2025 Candidates Forum, sponsored by Wallingford Community Women in collaboration with Wallingford Government Media. I'm Jean McFarland, your program moderator for this session. This segment features 6 of the 13 candidates running for Town Council. We ask that the audience be respectful of everyone here, even if you disagree with what is being said. We have much to cover, so please no interruptions from the audience. Please hold off clapping until the candidate's closing statement has been delivered. The format will be as follows. The first part of the program will consist of questions asked of the candidates by members of the Wallingford Community Women. They are Debbie Phillips and Debbie Hicks. They will ask the questions of the candidates. The candidates will be allowed 2 minutes to respond. The next question will be asked of the second candidate, and so on. Each candidate, if they so wish, will have 1 minute after the question and answer 2-minute periods to provide commentary on any of the questions asked of another candidate. At the conclusion of the question and answer period, 3 minutes will be allowed for each of the candidates to summarize. Before beginning the questioning, I'd like to introduce 6 of the candidates running for Town Council. They are, left to right, Samuel Carmody, Democrat, Christina Tata, Republican, Jeffrey Cohan, Democrat, Christopher Reagan, Republican, Jesse Reynolds, Democrat, Joe Marone, Republican. Debbie, would you please ask the first question of Samuel?
How will you encourage citizens to become more involved in the local government, nonprofits, and other organizations that support our community?
Good evening, and thank you to the Community Women for organizing tonight's event and the Wallingford Government Media for airing this on television. Wallingford is an amazing community with many great people who live here who want to be involved and thrive and make this community thrive. I think we need to offer as many options to be involved in our community as possible, and we need to share those opportunities through social media, through our schools, through our nonprofit organizations to get more people involved in the day-to-day activities of our amazing community. So I encourage everyone to get involved, to look online. I think we could do a better job as a town putting out opportunities on our website, on our social media, to let people know how they can be part of the fabric of our community. Thank you.
Christina, the next question.
Wallingford's housing stock has not kept pace with the needs of young families, seniors, and lower-income residents. What specific actions would you support, such as zoning changes, budget allocations, or partnerships to increase affordable housing options while maintaining neighborhood integrity?
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. So this has been a subject that's come up a lot recently. I think a lot of it stems back to the current market. And so philosophically, I'm kind of a free market kind of girl. And so I know we have ebbs and flows in the market over the years. And so right now, unfortunately, if you're buying, fortunately, if you're selling, we're in a high. And so it's very difficult for people to come into town and find affordable housing. That being said, one of the issues that I think is a problem and that is upsetting to me that I'm hearing from citizens is that some of our elderly residents are being kind of forced out of town because they have a home where maybe it was a larger home, they raised their family, and now they can't afford to live there, or they want to downsize, but they can't find appropriate housing in town. And so there are projects coming before the council. They're in the pipeline that would or could address that. We can look at senior housing incentives, and there's a couple of projects coming from Town Hall soon. My problem with that is if the projects, like the one that we had recently that came before the council, require tax abatements, or they want to pay almost no tax on these facilities. And when we offer a tax reduction to somebody, we're charging somebody else. So I don't think the way to do this is through tax abatements, but I think there could be a great way for the council to support some of these initiatives As far as zoning, you asked about that. We need to make sure that we're keeping the integrity of these neighborhoods and putting them in appropriate places. There was one recent development where there's multifamily houses in a neighborhood where there's, it's really not zoned for that, and that used a state law to have that happen. So I trust our planning and zoning department that they're gonna take a look at this, and hopefully we can come up with some great solutions. Thank you.
Jeffrey?
What would you, as a member of the town council, do to ensure sufficient funds in the budget to ensure accessibility and maintenance of our town parks?
Thank you. I've been a lifelong resident of Wallingford, and one of the attractive features for me is our town parks and our open space. I think that with the $210 million overall budget that we have, we can find funds to enhance and maintain and promote our town parks, especially our linear trail, Tyler Mill, and some of the other open spaces we have. Going through the budget, I noticed that our Conservation Commission only gets $8,000 per year to do their work. I think increasing their budget would enhance the attractiveness and availability of our parks. I think that we've done a pretty good job with open space. I think some of the newer open space along Williams Road, if we spent a little more money, a little more time, those would be very attractive parcels for, recreation and passive bird watching. So I think there is sufficient funds available. It's just a matter of, having the right people on the town council that would approve those funds, because it's a very important part of our town and our lifestyles. Thank you.
The next question of Chris.
Wallingford residents have voiced interest in more transparent and responsive local governance. What measures would you propose to improve communication between the town council and the public?
So thank you for that question, and thank you for hosting us, ladies, this evening. From a standpoint of dissemination of information, there's two types of way we consume media today. It's either a push or a pull. And when I describe the push, think of it as text messages that you get from random numbers that you may not necessarily want. You want to try to limit those excessive types of communications. On the flip side, there's a pull, and that means that an individual needs to go actively search for information regarding a topic or a search engine to find out events, to find out things that interest them or for more clarification. There's no right answer as far as a push or a pull. It's somewhere in the middle. I would like to see at the government level, we need to do a better job of communication. I would like to see at the government level more opportunities for citizens to opt in to certain types of communications, like our agenda for the council. We get that via email, it's posted on the website, but why not go the extra step to allow the citizens who are interested in that to get an email or notification that it is posted and is live. I think using technology and enhancing what our abilities are give us the opportunity to have a much greater reach. So thank you.
The next question for Jesse.
What do you see as the biggest challenge facing our town today, and what would you propose to do to remedy that?
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the Wallingford Community Women for hosting the event. Thank you for Wallingford Government TV for putting it on. Okay, so the most pressing issue and what would I do? Okay, well, so I think the issue that we have is kind of like there's an umbrella around a few things. The main focus of it is that we're going to require a lot of money to invest in some needed work that has to be done in both the short term and the long term. So right now we're planning to move forward building a new high school. That's a substantial amount of money. We're also, there's sitting on my desk 9 reports on infrastructure for buildings in town that are going to have 10-year plans as to how we're going to maintain them. And so the biggest issue that I see facing our town is where's the money going to come from? And so it's not clear that we can, simply just tax people more, because we just saw how popular that was in the last go around. And so what I think we need to do is we need to start finding new streams of revenue in our town, and that can come from, a host of different, places. One, being, our relationship with Schott. We've for a long time opted to have more of an informal relationship with them. I think if we had a formal relationship with them, there'd be some money to offset some of our costs. I think that if we were to maybe shift the money away from the Board of Education for the maintenance of our buildings, that we would relieve them of that, having to maintain that part of their budget, and it would go onto the government side, which we then would allow to be able to collect from places like Ashler Village that don't pay into our Board of Education budget. So I think money is the issue that we face for the future, and how we get it and who we get it from and how we come by it. I think that's the thing we're gonna all have to figure out. So, thank you.
The next question for Joe.
With the ever-increasing occurrence of car thefts, do you think the police department should set aside money in the budget to fund fingerprinting of the vehicles, since they are typically recovered?
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. So, I work in insurance, and I handled auto theft claims for a long time. One thing I can tell you for certain is that the Wallingford police do fingerprint cars when they're recovered. But the problem with the car theft issue really isn't how the cars are recovered. It's what happens to the perpetrators if you catch them. So most cars are typically recovered like within 48 hours, right? So the car gets stolen, it gets fingerprinted, it gets processed. Maybe they have a perpetrator, right? So then they find the perpetrator, he gets arrested, he gets processed, he gets let go, usually on a promise to appear. And then if he does go to court at some point, there really aren't a lot of consequences. We live in a state that's sort of taken a very back seat to how we handle crime, right? So we don't want to put people in prison, which I kind of understand from a certain philosophy. But if you don't punish the offenders, then how do you prevent them from stealing again? So to me, it really comes down to, like, fingerprinting is one small part of it, right? To me, the larger part is how do you prevent the vehicle theft from taking place in the first place? And so I think if you look at the police department as a whole, our police department really hasn't grown in 20 years, right? We have a very similar number of officers now that we had 20 years ago. So I think what you really need to look at is how can you grow the police department and have more patrols, and have a street crimes division, and have an auto theft division, narcotics, all the kinds of things that like a larger department might have. I think we have a great town. I think we have a really safe town, but I also think that there's a lot more crime in town than people recognize. And I think that if we're going to seriously attack auto theft and auto break-ins, you just need more police. I mean, there really isn't a shorter answer to it. So, in summation, we're already doing the fingerprinting, so don't think we're not. And I just think if the emphasis is on crime and preventing crime, then I think we need to take a hard look at how we fund our police department. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next question goes to Samuel.
In your opinion, what is the best part of living in Wallingford, and what unique skills do you possess that can help make it even better?
Thank you for the question. I think the greatest part of our community is its people. The people of Wallingford create a real amazing community that I am very proud to be a part of. And my background is in government. I've worked both on the public sector and in the private sector. I know constituent services. I know how government operates. And in the private sector, I also work for a large corporation closely with municipalities and their day-to-day operations. So I'm proud of my background, being registrar of voters here in town, serving on the Zoning Board of Appeals or Wallingford Public Celebrations Committee, and now on the town council. I think my background brings knowledge of government and its process to the table. But ultimately, to answer the first question, what makes Wallingford amazing is its people. Thank you.
The next question goes to Christina.
With reference to the town's budget, what are the top 5 areas that you would like to see prioritized, and why? How would you propose to implement those priorities?
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. I was hoping I would get this question because the budget is kind of, I've kind of made that my number one priority in my 3 terms on the council. So we get the budget book and it's hundreds of pages, and I go every single line, every single penny every year and try to analyze and look at where we can save and see where we need to be maybe putting some more. You asked for 5 things. I don't know if I can get to 5, but I'll try to cover a couple. One of the biggest things I think that we can do, and it's a kind of a frustration of mine sometimes during budget season, is that I think everybody, all the elected officials and all the departments need to look at every single line of the budget, and we can't really look at it playing favorites. So a lot of times what I see with the budget is everyone kind of has their baby, right? They have their one thing that they don't really want to touch, and they think we have to fund this 100% and I'm not going to look at that. But the problem is when you have all these departments and you have 9 people working on the budget, everybody's favorites are different. So I think I would hope that maybe the next council, we can look at it with a bit of a more open mind and know that everything is on the table. So that would be one thing. Another thing, I think, and this would obviously heavily rely on the administration, we could maybe work with them, but I think there may be different ways to budget that we haven't looked at in the past. So sometimes we hear about zero-based budgeting or looking at different ways of looking at the budget that we maybe haven't had in the past. There's a lot of programs out there. And so now we're getting, we have our new IT director and we're getting some technology on board. I think that there's a lot of analytics that we don't have. So year over year comparisons, charts and graphs that I see other towns have that I'm hoping we can get into. That's only 2. I'm sorry I couldn't get to 5, but it looks like I'm out of time. So thank you.
The next question for Jeffrey.
What feedback have you received about the recent reevaluation and consequent rise in taxes? How will you move forward based on that feedback?
Thank you. From all the door knocking, all the people who come up to us at Celebrate Wallingford, the number one issue is the 20% tax increase that we experienced this last tax season. Everybody is upset about that. There is no exception. One of the things that we need to do is look at, as Jesse said, alternative sources of revenue. And I would be in favor of looking at Schott as a revenue source. People say that, with the houses they've taken off the tax rolls and the children they're sending to our public schools, there's about $700,000 worth of taxes that we could be collecting. A lot of people say, well, Schott gives back to the community. Well, let's have them put a value on what they give. We'll give them, our numbers for what we expect in taxes and come up with a fair number between us. I think for that to happen, we're going to have to change the makeup of the council because this past administration will not approach that. With new people on the council, that will get addressed, and I think that's critical. Also, businesses did not get a tax increase. My neighbor and I spoke, he has commercial property. He did not get a tax increase on his commercial property, so we need to address that as well. Thank you.
The next question for Chris.
Do you think the emergency shelter should be open year-round?
Thank you for that question. No, I do not. This past year, we found early in the February timeframe that the shelter wasn't going to be open this year in extreme cold situation. The mayor committed to dollars and also asked for My Family's Foundation's participation in matching the funding that was given by the town to the shelter. We have some real questions as the current council, I'm only speaking for myself though, but that I've observed of where that money goes and who does it service. In the upcoming town council agenda meeting for Tuesday, we have a presentation from the organization once again coming knocking on the town's door, asking for a significant increase in the amount of money, and we just don't have the answer. Who are we servicing, from what what towns, et cetera. So I'd like to get the situation for the winter taken care of first before we would look at a much larger 365-day run organization. With that, thank you.
The next question for Jesse.
Where do you see Wallingford in 5 years? And what will you do during your tenure on the town council to help Wallingford obtain that vision?
Well, thank you for the question. So, as I said in my previous statement, we have a lot of work to do. So hopefully in 5 years, we'll be substantially on the way to addressing a lot of those things. I would expect that if everything goes as planned, the new high school would be open in about 5 years. So that'd be something that we'd be looking at. I think that would be something that we as a town could get behind as sort of a soft reboot, and kind of something that we could sort of surround as a community and get excited about, and think about all the opportunities that it presents to us. And try to incorporate ways that that sort of recognizes the traditions that exist in our high schools and things like that. It could be a real community effort to sort of bring us all together around something that's going to be new and hopefully very exciting, something that will hopefully attract more people to our town, while we hopefully see more development of affordable housing. To Christina's point earlier, I happen to support tax abatements for developers who will develop affordable housing in our town, because it's the only way that they can find a way to do it. The deal that was presented to us is better than the deal that other surrounding towns, including New Haven, which is already strapped for tax money itself. So I would see situations like that as opportunities to grow. So we need more housing so that we can ship seniors into affordable housing. We can attract young people. And why not have a brand new high school to attract new families to our town, to reinvigorate our tax base and hopefully attract more business with it. So, thank you.
The last question for Joe.
What is your most important concern regarding budgeting funds for the success of our education system at this time, and how do you propose to implement that?
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. That's a great question. So I think education is an extremely important topic, right? And so part of it is the funding, and part of it is the results, right? And so I think, as a father with a high schooler who've had kids that have gone K through 12 in the Wallingford Public Schools, the schools are not at a place that I think we're really proud of as a community at present, right? And I think a lot of emphasis needs to be put on how do we improve the quality of education. If funding is the thing that's going to improve the quality of education, then we should obtain that funding. But it has to come with the caveat that you have to see the improvement. So, like in business, if you're not attaining your goal, you set a goal and then you set a plan to achieve it. If you don't achieve it, you have to make changes. And I think that we are very reluctant to make changes in our current educational system because we're afraid of sort of upsetting the apple cart, right? So if we really want to achieve, then I think we need to take bold action. And if that involves money, then that's fine. But I think we need to start looking at education a little bit differently. We have 12 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and 2 high schools, right? And right now we're talking about a plan on what do we do with the 2 high schools? Do we shrink to 1? Which I'm not a huge fan of the plan, but I'm certainly happy to talk through it and listen to the ideas and see how that benefits our kids overall. And if it seems like that's the better, the better direction, better educational direction, then let's do it. But we also have 12 aging elementary schools, and we have 2 middle schools that are sort of in a state of disrepair, right? And so we have to find ways, and that's not even getting into the academics. So we need a more comprehensive plan as far as how we're going to manage the schools for the next, say, 20 or 30 years. Maybe the idea of having 12 elementary schools doesn't make a lot of sense. If you're going to combine high schools, why not combine middle and elementary schools? I mean, I think there's a lot of ways that you could sort of look at this problem without being laser focused on the concept of the 1 high school. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now allow each candidate the opportunity for a 1-minute commentary on any of the previously asked questions. Samuel, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I think there were a lot of good topics tonight, but I did want to also touch upon the affordable housing crisis in my mind. I mean, Wallingford only has about 4.2% housing stock deemed affordable in our town, and that is not enough. Young people can't afford to stay here that have grown up here. Older people who have lived their lives here can't afford to stay in their houses. This is a problem, and we need to focus on that seriously. And I support a tax abatement for this property at 55 Kondraki Lane that the developers came and spoke to us on. I support the Choke Boathouse property where we're going to put affordable senior property on. And I'm very proud to have supported the Connecticut Municipal Development Authority agreement that we made at our last council meeting, where they are able to provide resources to our town to advocate for housing stock in our community. This is the issue of the day, I really believe, and we need to focus on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina?
Thank you. I would like to speak to the question Mr. Cohan received about the parks. So I think one of the things in town that I'm hoping to try to work on a little bit more if elected again would be the condition of our parks. So we've got some wonderful parks. We've got a few hidden gems. I've been talking to some groups lately about Tyler Mill. So Tyler Mill is a gorgeous gem in this town, and I think it's really underutilized. I think a lot of people don't even know it exists. And there are a few issues going on in there that I think are preventing the town from enjoying it. So we want to look at, I would like to look at things like that. Also, when I look at other towns, so I have a lot of nieces and nephews, we go to their sporting events in other towns, and you compare your town to other towns. And some of these parks are beautiful, and ours aren't quite up to snuff. One of the ideas I heard of recently is a neighboring town, their Parks and Rec department, or their Public Works department, has one person who's in charge of each park. So each individual park has one person in town who's responsible for that park. So if there's an issue in that park, they have somebody they can go to, and there's some accountability. So I think we can do some things like that.
Thank you. Jeffrey?
Yeah, quickly, I want to follow up on Christina's comment about zoning. I've been on planning and zoning for about 13 years now. And yeah, housing is a problem. One of the things we need to do is change some of the allowable uses in our industrial zones. You know, they have sat dormant for a long time. You know, nobody's building office buildings. They're trying to get in warehouses and fulfillment centers. Let's use that for housing. Let's allow housing in there in some of the buildings, that empty office building on Barton's Road. And, you know, I think we can take a crack at some of the housing problems we have. Thank you.
Chris?
Thank you. So I could comment on every issue that's come up probably at length and probably too long if those that know me. I would say one of the larger, if not largest, problem we have in the town is revenue. There is a absolute need to increase revenue from commercial and industrial businesses by incenting and enticing them to come into our community so that we can lessen the burden on the residential taxpayer. It became unbalanced this year, and we need to rebalance actually the opposite direction, to have less of that burden towards the individual taxpayer versus a business or industry. And then you can further fund the various projects, parks and restoration and building maintenance at that point. So thank you.
Jesse?
I think I'd like to maybe address the question that Councilor Marone got in reference to what he was speaking about in terms of measuring success and how we sort of plan for those things. And I do agree that if we're going to invest a substantial amount of money in our schools, we have to think about ways to sort of measure that with benchmarks and so forth. But I think the bigger issue that we sort of are facing right now is we're not fully funding the budgets that we were given. The last 2 years we've tried to cut, or we've cut substantial amounts. And so it becomes a real difficult thing to balance when we're talking about like maintenance of buildings, plus, teachers and, all of the things that go into it. And so I don't think that we can start thinking about what's the success going to be before we invest in our schools. I think we have to invest now. We've waited too long. Our schools need, there's a 10-year plan for every school. The Board of Ed has it. I fully support going at that, but I think we need to be more aggressive. And I think we as a town need to figure out a way to pay for it that does not burden the Board of Ed. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe?
Thank you very much. So I wanted to address the question of transparent government and the town council. As chair of the council, it's been one of my core principles has been to make government as transparent as absolutely transparent as possible. Wallingford is behind on technology in a lot of ways, but in terms of government transparency, I would say that we're one of the leaders in the state. Our meetings are live streamed in real time, which is not something that most towns have. And then all the meetings are on YouTube, which is something else that most towns don't have. That your access to your elected officials in town is exemplary. We all have our phone numbers and addresses online on the town website. I get calls from residents all the time with problems. None of us are hard to get a hold of. And so I'm not sure what else would someone like to see with transparent government. I'm willing to listen to anyone. So if you have an idea of how we could get more transparent, let me know and maybe we can put it into practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes the question and answer portion of the program. Each candidate will now have 3 minutes to make a closing statement, and we're going to go in the opposite order. So Joe, would you please begin?
Thank you very much. So first of all, thank you to the Wallingford Community Women for putting on this forum and to Government TV for their exemplary work as they do at every council meeting. When I was elected 2 years ago and became chair of the council, I had made some sort of promises in my speech in terms of one was about the rate of change, right? And that the rate of change for some would be too rapid and for some would be too slow. And from my perspective, government always turns too slow. And a great example of that is technology in town hall. And a lot of this, is an administrative function, but the town council has been very supportive of increasing technology. We're getting there, but we're certainly not there, but we're working on it. It's a very high priority, I think, for the entire council to sort of move us forward. Electronic bill pay, electronic check payments for town employees and so on. I also talked about, the methodology that I would want to use to determine how to move forward with things is sort of the measure, test, and then correct based on the measurements, right? And I think if you look at the fire department study, I think the town council is doing exactly that, right? We identified that what we thought was a problem, which is maybe perhaps a lack of firefighters. And so the town council pushed for a study, which is undergoing now. We should have the results soon. And then we'll make a correction in how we handle the fire department based on the results of that study. So what I like about that is it's sort of a very thoughtful approach to how we govern. In addition, something else that I'd like to mention, and this predates me certainly, but the community pool, something we passed in this term to finally move the money forward. The pool's under construction right now. I think it's a great win for the town, and I think it's an example of this town council being forward thinking about what is going to attract people to town, right? Families. I think I pride myself in the ability to work across the aisle, regardless of party, and sort of, there's no one on the council that I wouldn't break bread with, right? I serve with 8 of the finest people I know in town. And I think, it's easy to criticize the councilors, right? Because people take positions on things that you may not like. But I think if you followed any of these councilors around and you saw the things that they were involved in and how they spent their time outside of the council chamber, you'd be pretty impressed at what like an admirable group of people this is. So in terms of priorities, my priorities for the next year, police, fire, public works, education, and then everything else. And when I say everything else, I mean those 4 topics are the ones that we should be spending 90% of our time on, and then everything else is sort of in the other bucket. We need to enhance the police department, the fire department, and the public works, and then education obviously is always a concern. A lot of people are going to ask you to vote for them, which is great. I think for me, democracy is more about a choice, right? So if I am not your cup of tea, there's plenty of good people here that you could vote for. But if you do choose to vote for me, then I will continue to do what I've promised, and we'll try to keep Wallingford moving forward for the next 2 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Jesse?
Well, thank you. Thank you for Wallingford Community Women for putting on this event. Thank you for Wallingford Government TV for putting this on YouTube and as Joe said, doing a great job as usual. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to everybody watching at home. If you don't know who I am, my name is Jesse Reynolds. I'm actually on the town council right now. Some people might not know that actually, whether you think that's funny or not. I've been married for 25 years. I have 2 adult sons who've gone through Lyman Hall, graduated from Lyman Hall, gone through the full Wallingford public education system. And and just getting back to the original thing, this event is very important. And again, I do mean thank you for putting it on, because there are very limited opportunities to actually hear people who are running for office speak candidly, to be asked questions. And, to be able to have a choice at who you want to vote for based on the ideas that are in their head and not, the things that you may read on social media and so forth. So this type of debate is very important. And so thank you to everybody who's also running for every position in government. But it's been a pleasure to serve, and I really love doing it. And I would love to have the opportunity to do it again. I would gladly serve, and there's so many challenges that we face as a town, and I really, really want to do my part to help out. And I think that I've been an effective counselor in my first term. I've worked across the aisle. I'm a willing collaborator with anyone who wants to collaborate on things. And we have a really big challenge with the shift in the population that we see. There's people like myself who are my age who have children in college and now have aging parents, and it's something that we all face as a community. But if we don't bring in more young people at a quicker rate, when the folks like myself, are in our 50s and we're now in our 70s, we'll have a tax burden that we will not be able to handle. And that's a reality that we really have to address, whether it includes growing business, whether it includes building more affordable housing, but that's the reality of what we face. And so, we have equity in our town right now. That recent revaluation that made all of our houses way more expensive and made all of our tax bills go up, that's kind of like thinking about that you have money that you can sort of borrow against. And I'm not suggesting that we bond out everything from here till tomorrow, but we have to keep that in mind. Now is the time to move. Now is the time to invest in our town. We've got equity in what we can borrow against, and we have money in the bank that we don't have to touch, right? There are ways that we can do it, and I'm the kind of person that will work with the other people to make sure that it happens. You have my word for it. So I would like your support on November 4th. Early voting begins on October 20th, and if you want to go to my website, it's jesseReynoldsTownCouncil.com. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Chris?
Thank you. To echo what Councilor Reynolds stated, I too am a first-term counselor. I'm also a father, a husband. I'm also a business owner, a veteran, and a nonprofit champion. For those in the nonprofit community here in town, you know who I am. You are working with me on a variety of projects servicing a number of individual needs. I am a champion of addiction and addiction services, whereas I give speeches, podcasts, etc., regarding my own personal journey to hell and back. We are also very much involved in veterans reintegration services through our own personal family foundation. And over the last few years, I've brought my experience as Connecticut's largest service-disabled, veteran-owned small business in the federal government to processes and big picture items in the technology realm. We worked with the mayor to hire the information technology director and to put forward a roadmap that didn't recklessly put in technology for the sake of technology's sake, but created the long-term vision as to where we wanted to be at the end of 24, at the end of 60 months, at the end of 10 years, if we can even imagine what 10 years in technology looks like. Working on policy as far as technology use, and with with everything regarding security in the background. So I bring all of the skill sets as a 28-year-old business owner in process optimizations and balanced budget and thought leadership and leadership in managing individuals in general. I would be honored to receive your vote again this year, as I did 2 years ago, and appreciate the opportunity again to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeffrey?
Thank you. I've been on the Planning and Zoning Commission for 13 years, professional career. I was an information technology leader at it and an IBM. I spent a lot of time with a lot of different stakeholders, constituents, doing a lot of collaboration on projects. You know, I've heard a lot of good things up here tonight, but what I'm not hearing is an action plan. And that's troubling. Mr. Marone talked about his priorities. I think that's one thing that has really been lacking with the town council over the last few years. You know, our education system is the most important asset we have in town. That has to be priority number one. It brings people who want to live here. It supplies employees to businesses. You know, the children are our future. That has to be priority number one. And with the decline in our education system over the last few years, it's really disappointing because nobody has acted on it. He talked about scorecards and metrics. Why wasn't that done years ago? We needed that done. I got a couple letters from a couple of teachers expressing their concerns about the education system. And basically, if I get elected to the town council, education is going to be my top priority. I will absolutely fund whatever education needs are required. However, as Mr. Rohn did say, I will expect some type of scorecard to be created with metrics to show improvement. If we don't see that improvement, I'm going to go back to the Board of Ed, you know, the superintendent of schools and say, why are things not improving? We gave you the money, you know, you need to show results. And not to point fingers at people, but if the results aren't there, we're going to find out why they did not improve and, you know, make changes to make sure they improve. I also would like to see, you know, kind of an expense account for teachers so they don't have to spend money out of their own pocket to get supplies for kids. You know, technology has been enabled in town hall, but anybody pay their bill electronically? If I paid my taxes, it cost me an extra $300 with the system they have in place. That's not right. You know, there's other better ways of doing things with the technology. I guess I'm over time. I hope you can support me. I like to get things done and not just talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina?
Thank you very much. So in closing, for those of you who may not know who I am, or for any first-time voters, I'm Christina Tata. I'm currently on my third term on the town council. This current term, I was honored to be elected by my fellow councilors unanimously as their vice chair, which has been a wonderful experience, and I appreciate everyone's support on that. In my almost 6 years now on the council, I've never missed one meeting. I've never missed a vote. I pride myself on that. This is my priority. You are my priority. I put being on the council before everything else. And it's something that I take very seriously. I don't take it for granted. I know that we work for you, and I know that's the purpose of the government. I very strongly believe in that. The government is here to work for you and not the other way around. As far as my other roles in the community, I've been a parishioner at Church of the Resurrection for over 20 years. I've served in various volunteer roles there, which is now St. Benedict Parish, so we're all coming together as one Catholic community in Wallingford, which is exciting. I'm also a volunteer firefighter and EMT at Company 7, the North Farms Fire Department. As far as my career, I have a business background, which is something that not all of the councilors have, and I think it serves us well on the council. So I've been involved in my family's businesses since I graduated college. One of our businesses, it was a wooded lot. We created a business there. It employs over 40 individuals to this day. Another business that we're currently embarking on was a brownfield project. It was a area that was a blight to the town where it's in. We turned that around, got it cleaned up, put it back on the tax rolls. It's now a business with employees. And I say that because I think one of our huge focuses this term needs to be on building that tax base. So we mentioned before how the residential side got a tax hit this year because of revaluation. The way to solve that is we need to build back up our business base. I have the background to do so. I know firsthand what it's like to deal with land use boards, with government red tape and how to get these projects done. So I'm hoping I can be a benefit in that regard. I hope my record over the past 6 years has shown that I value results over rhetoric. If somebody comes to me with a problem or an issue, I like to find a solution. I'm not afraid to question the status quo, and I think that my record shows that. I ask the hard questions. Anything is not off limits for me. If there's something going on in town, I'll try to get to the bottom of it, and I hope my record has shown that. So to sum up, I hope that over the past 6 years, I have earned your trust. I hope I've earned your faith in me, and I hope I have earned your support to vote for me again for town council. Thank you.
Thank you. Samuel?
Thank you again to the organizers for tonight's forum. It is so important to hear from all our candidates. I have been very proud to serve my hometown for the last 4 years on this town council. During this time, I have strived to be a steady voice and hold government accountable. I want Wallingford to be a more vibrant and welcoming community, and I want Wallingford to thrive. Looking forward, I will continue, and I really appreciate what Jeff said tonight, because I always say, strong schools make strong communities, and I will continue to fight for strong schools and fight for fully funding our schools each and every year, as I have. I want to focus on downtown revitalization, looking at long-term infrastructure improvements and economic development to bring in more businesses to offset the tax burden on our residents. This takes strong leadership, and I want to be a strong leader for all of you. So thank you again.
Thank you. This concludes part 1 of the 2025 Town Council Candidates Forum. On behalf of the Wallingford Community Women, I thank you for watching and remind you to please vote before November 4th.